In a galaxy far beyond the reach of human imagination, there existed an empire so vast that it spanned thousands of worlds. This empire was ruled by a single family, the Voss dynasty, whose power stretched across stars and galaxies. At the heart of this colossal realm stood Layla Voss, the heir to the throne. Born into privilege and trained from infancy to lead, she was destined to rule over 1,000 worlds. Yet, despite her immense responsibilities and the weight of her lineage, Layla often felt like something was missing. Her life was filled with ceremonies, councils, and endless lessons on governance, but none of it seemed to fill the void inside her. Layla spent most of her days aboard the grand flagship, the Sovereign Dawn, a vessel as massive and imposing as the empire it represented. The ship was a floating city, equipped with everything needed to sustain its crew for years at a time. It boasted towering spires, shimmering halls, and countless rooms dedicated to the business of ruling. Layla's quarters were among the most luxurious, adorned with intricate designs and artifacts collected from conquered planets. But no matter how beautiful or impressive her surroundings, they failed to bring her joy. She felt trapped, not by walls or chains, but by expectations. Her father, Emperor Darius Voss, was a man of unyielding ambition. He had built the empire, through conquest and diplomacy, ensuring that his name would echo through history. To him, Layla was not just a daughter, but a symbol of the dynasty's enduring strength. From a young age, he drilled into her the importance of duty, discipline, and control. Every decision she made, every word she spoke was scrutinized by advisors who whispered in her ear about legacy and honor. They told her that being an empress meant sacrificing personal desires for the greater good of the empire. But as much as Layla tried to embody their ideals, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was living someone else's life. One evening, as the Sovereign Dawn orbited a newly acquired planet on the edge of known space, Layla decided to take a rare moment for herself. She stepped onto the observation deck, a long, curved room with transparent walls that offered a breathtaking view of the cosmos. Stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across velvet, and distant nebulae painted the darkness with hues of purple and blue. For a brief moment, Layla allowed herself to forget about her duties and simply admire the beauty before her. But her solitude was interrupted when alarms blared throughout the ship. Rushing back to the command center, Layla found Captain Mira Solon briefing her officers. A small transport vessel had entered the system and was on a collision course with the Sovereign Dawn. Initial scans revealed it to be damaged and barely holding together. Layla ordered the crew to prepare for an emergency docking procedure, curious about who or what was aboard. When the transport finally docked, it became clear that the craft was little more than a battered shell. Smoke poured from its engines and parts of its hull were scorched black. Despite its condition, however, the ship still carried one passenger, a human male named Ethan Cole. Humans were a rarity in this part of the galaxy. After Earth's destruction, centuries ago, humanity had been scattered across the stars, reduced to living in isolated colonies or serving as laborers for more powerful species. Seeing a human here so far from any known settlement was unusual. Ethan was brought before Layla in the command center. He was tall and lean, with sharp features and piercing green eyes. His clothes were torn and dirty, evidence of the hardships he had endured. Despite his disheveled appearance, Ethan carried himself with quiet confidence. When he met Layla's gaze, he didn't bow or stammer like most people did in her presence. Instead, he looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and defiance. "Who are you?" Layla asked, her tone firm but not unkind. "My name is Ethan Cole," he replied, his voice steady. "I'm a refugee." "A refugee?" Layla repeated, raising an eyebrow. "From where?" "Does it matter?" Ethan countered. "You've already taken my home, what's left of it anyway." His words struck a chord within Layla. She wasn't used to being spoken to so directly, especially by someone of such low standing. Most people treated her with reverence, afraid to say anything that might offend her. But Ethan seemed different. There was a raw honesty in his demeanor, a refusal to play the games of politics and power. Despite her initial irritation, Layla found herself intrigued by him. She ordered her guards to escort Ethan to a holding cell while she decided what to do next. As he was led away, Layla couldn't help but wonder about the story behind his arrival. Why had he come here, of all places? And what secrets might he hold? Over the next few days, Layla visited Ethan in his cell, questioning him about his past. At first, he was reluctant to share much, wary of trusting someone in her position. But slowly, he began to open up. Ethan told her about growing up on a remote colony struggling to survive in a harsh environment. He spoke of the bonds he formed with others, the friendships and sacrifices that kept them going. His stories painted a picture of resilience and hope, qualities Layla admired but rarely saw in her own life. As she listened to Ethan, Layla started to see the world through new eyes. She realized that her empire, for all its grandeur, was built on the backs of people like him, ordinary individuals trying to make the best of difficult circumstances. The realization unsettled her, forcing her to confront uncomfortable truths about her role in maintaining the status quo. By the time Ethan finished recounting his tale, Layla knew that meeting him was no accident. Something about his presence challenged her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Whether it was fate or mere coincidence, she couldn't say. But one thing was certain. Ethan Cole had sparked a change within her, one that would alter the course of her life and the Empire forever. Layla found herself thinking about Ethan more often than she cared to admit. His words lingered in her mind, replaying like a melody she couldn't silence. The way he spoke of survival and resilience struck a chord deep within her. It wasn't just his stories that intrigued her, it was the way he carried himself. Ethan didn't bow or grovel like the people who surrounded her every day. He met her gaze with an unshakable calm, as if he saw through the layers of titles and power to the person beneath. At first, Layla tried to dismiss him as nothing more than a curiosity. After all, what could a human refugee teach someone like her? She had been groomed since birth to lead an empire. Her tutors had drilled lessons into her about strategy, diplomacy, and governance. Yet none of those lessons had prepared her for the quiet defiance Ethan exuded. He didn't fear her, and that unnerved her in ways she couldn't quite explain. Curiosity eventually got the better of her. Layla began visiting Ethan's holding cell more frequently, not just to question him but to listen. She asked about Earth, the planet humanity once called home. Though it had been destroyed centuries ago, its memory still lingered in the tales told by survivors. Ethan described Earth not as a place of grandeur or conquest, but as a world shaped by ordinary moments. He spoke of families gathering around tables, children playing in parks, and neighbors helping one another during hard times. These were things Layla had never experienced. Her life was filled with ceremonies and protocols, not simple acts of kindness. Ethan also shared stories of the resistance movements he had been part of before fleeing his colony. He explained how humans, despite their scattered existence, refused to give up. They fought back against oppressive regimes, using whatever tools they could find. Layla listened intently, fascinated by the idea of rebellion. In her empire, dissent was crushed swiftly and mercilessly. The thought of people standing together to challenge authority seemed both dangerous and inspiring. As their conversations continued, Layla noticed something else about Ethan. He didn't treat her as an empress. To him, she was simply another person, someone with whom he could exchange ideas. This lack of deference should have angered her, but instead it felt refreshing. For the first time in her life, Layla felt seen, not as a symbol of power, but as an individual with thoughts and feelings. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Layla began to confide in Ethan, sharing her doubts and frustrations about ruling the empire. She admitted that she often felt like a figurehead, a puppet controlled by advisors and generals who whispered in her ear about duty and legacy. Ethan listened patiently, offering insights without judgment. He reminded her that true leadership wasn't about following orders blindly, but about making choices that aligned with one's values. One evening, as they sat talking in the dim light of the holding cell, Ethan posed a question that stopped Layla in her tracks. "Do you believe in your empire's mission?" he asked, his voice steady. "Or are you just going through the motions because it's expected of you?" The question hit her like a bolt of lightning. Layla had never considered it before. She had always assumed that ruling was her destiny, something she was born to do. But now, faced with Ethan's probing words, she realized she didn't know what she truly believed. Was her empire's expansion worth the cost of crushing so many lives? Did she even have the right to decide the fate of thousands of worlds? For the first time, Layla allowed herself to entertain the possibility that her empire might be flawed. She thought about the countless planets under her rule, the billions of people living under laws imposed by distant rulers. How many of them resented her family's dominance? How many suffered in silence while she enjoyed the comforts of her flagship? Ethan seemed to sense her turmoil. "You have power," he said gently. "But power isn't just about control, it's about responsibility. You can use your position to make things better, or worse." His words haunted her long after their conversation ended. That night, Layla lay awake in her quarters staring at the ceiling. Images of conquered planets and oppressed peoples flashed through her mind. She thought about the faces of refugees she had seen during inspections. Faces etched with fear and despair. Were these the consequences of her empire's actions? And if so, could she bear the weight of that knowledge? The next morning, Layla made a decision. She ordered Ethan released from his cell and granted him temporary asylum aboard the Sovereign, Dawn. Her advisors protested vehemently, warning her that associating with a human refugee could undermine her authority. But Layla ignored them. For the first time in her life, she acted on instinct rather than expectation. As Ethan walked freely through the ship, Layla introduced him to members of her inner circle. Some treated him with disdain, others with suspicion, but none dared to challenge her decision openly. Layla, however, paid little attention to their reactions. She was more focused on learning from Ethan, eager to understand the perspectives he offered. Over time, their relationship deepened. Layla began to see Ethan not just as a refugee but as a guide, a person who could help her navigate the complexities of leadership. Together, they discussed ideas for reforming the empire, exploring ways to reduce suffering and promote fairness. Though Layla knew change wouldn't come easily, she felt hopeful for the first time in years. But hope came with risks. Not everyone aboard the Sovereign Dawn welcomed Ethan's presence. General Cale Draven, one of her father's most trusted commanders, viewed the human refugee as a threat. He argued that Ethan's influence over Layla was dangerous, potentially destabilizing the empire. When whispers of rebellion reached Layla's ears, stirred by factions within her own military, she realized just how fragile her grip on power truly was. Despite the growing tension, Layla refused to back down. She had spent her entire life following the rules laid out for her, never daring to question them. Now, with Ethan by her side, she was beginning to see a different path, one that required courage and conviction. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she couldn't face them alone, and for the first time she didn't want to. Layla's decision to keep Ethan aboard the Sovereign Dawn did not go unnoticed. Rumors spread quickly among the crew, and soon her advisors were demanding answers. General Cale Draven was the loudest voice of dissent. A tall, imposing man with a reputation for ruthlessness, Draven had served under Emperor Darius Voss for decades. He saw Layla's growing bond with Ethan as a sign of weakness, a crack in the armor of an otherwise unyielding empire. "She is allowing a human refugee to influence her," Draven said during one heated meeting in the command center. His tone was sharp, his words laced with disdain. "This is unacceptable. If word gets out, it will embolden our enemies and weaken our position." Layla listened silently as her advisors echoed Draven's concerns. They spoke of loyalty, tradition, and the importance of maintaining order. To them, Ethan was nothing more than a liability, a reminder that Layla was still young and inexperienced. But Layla didn't care what they thought. She had made up her mind. For once, she wanted to follow her instincts instead of bending to their expectations. After the meeting ended, Layla retreated to her quarters, her thoughts swirling. She knew her advisors were right about one thing. Keeping Ethan aboard the ship was risky. But she also knew that he had opened her eyes to truths she couldn't ignore. The empire she was destined to rule wasn't perfect. It was built on conquest and control, leaving countless lives shattered in its wake. If she wanted to be a leader worth following, she needed to find a better way. Ethan noticed the tension building around Layla. One evening, as they sat together in a quiet corner of the observation deck, he turned to her and asked, "Are you okay?" Layla hesitated before answering. "I'm fine," she said finally, though her voice betrayed her uncertainty. "But my advisors aren't happy. They think I'm making a mistake by letting you stay." "And what do you think?" Ethan pressed. "I think—" Layla paused, searching for the right words. "I think I've spent my whole life doing what other people tell me to do. I've followed rules and traditions without questioning them. But now I'm starting to wonder if those rules are wrong." Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Change is scary," he said, "especially when you're challenging something as big as an empire. But sometimes it's necessary." His words gave Layla strength. She realized that she couldn't turn back now. If she wanted to create a better future, she would have to face the consequences of her choices. The whispers of rebellion grew louder in the weeks that followed. Factions within the military began plotting against Layla, using her association, with Ethan as proof that she was unfit to lead. Draven became the face of this movement, rallying support from high-ranking officers who shared his distrust of outsiders. Layla tried to ignore the unrest, focusing instead on her plans for reform. But no matter how hard she worked, the shadow of betrayal loomed over her. One night, as Layla reviewed reports in her quarters, an urgent message arrived from the bridge. Captain Mira Solon appeared on the screen, her face pale with worry. "Your Highness," she began, "we've intercepted communications suggesting a coup is being planned. General Draven is leading it." Layla felt a chill run down her spine. She had known Draven was unhappy, but she hadn't expected him to act so boldly. "How much time do we have?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Not long," Solon replied. "They plan to strike within days." Layla thanked the captain and ended the transmission. Her mind raced as she considered her options. She could confront Draven directly, but that might only escalate the situation. Alternatively, she could try to negotiate, offering concessions to appease his followers. Neither option seemed ideal. Determined to find a solution, Layla sought out Ethan. When she found him in the library, an expansive room filled with books and data tablets, she explained the situation. "Draven is planning to take over," she said. "If he succeeds, everything I've worked for will be lost." Ethan listened carefully, his brow furrowed in thought. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know," Layla admitted. "I can't fight him directly. He has too much support. But I can't let him win either." Ethan leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers against the table. "Maybe you don't have to fight him alone," he said after a moment. "You've been talking about reforming the empire. What if you reached out to the people who stand to benefit from those changes? The rebels, the oppressed? They might be willing to help you if they believe you're sincere." Layla stared at him, stunned by the simplicity of his idea. She had always viewed the rebels as enemies, obstacles to be crushed. But what if they could be allies instead? It was a risky proposition, but it might be her only chance. With Ethan's help, Layla devised a plan. They would infiltrate a rebel stronghold on a desolate moon called Solus Minor, hoping to establish contact with the leaders of the resistance. If successful, they could form an alliance capable of countering Draven's forces. The mission would be dangerous, but Layla knew she had no other choice. The journey to Solus Minor took several days. As the sovereign dawn approached the moon, Layla prepared for the possibility of failure. She wore a simple uniform, abandoning the elaborate robes that usually marked her status. Beside her, Ethan carried a small device containing encrypted messages meant to prove her sincerity. Together, they boarded a shuttle and descended to the surface. Solus Minor was bleak and barren, its landscape scarred by years of neglect. The rebel base was hidden deep within a network of caves protected by layers of security. When Layla and Ethan arrived, they were met with suspicion. Armed guards escorted them to a large chamber where a group of rebels awaited, their faces hardened by years of struggle. Layla stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I am Layla Voss," she began, her voice clear and steady. "Heir to the empire you fought against for so long. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'm here because I want to change things. My empire has caused pain and suffering, and I intend to put an end to it." The rebels exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. One of them, a woman named Tessa, stepped forward. "Why should we believe you?" she demanded. "Your family has destroyed countless lives. What makes you different?" Layla hesitated, then gestured to Ethan. "Ask him," she said. "He's seen what I've done. He knows I'm serious." Ethan nodded, stepping forward to speak. "She's telling the truth," he said. "I've seen the change in her. She wants to make things right." Tessa studied Layla for a long moment before nodding slowly. "We'll consider your proposal," she said. "But know this. If you betray us, there will be consequences." Layla accepted the terms, knowing it was the best outcome she could hope for. Over the next few hours, she and Ethan worked with the rebels to outline a strategy for countering Draven's coup. By the time they returned to the Sovereign Dawn, Layla felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time she had allies who believed in her vision. As the ship prepared to leave Solus Minor, Layla stood on the observation deck, watching the desolate moon fade into the distance. She felt a mixture of fear and determination. The battle for her empire and her soul was just beginning. The days following Layla's meeting with the rebels were tense and chaotic. Back aboard the Sovereign Dawn, she worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming conflict. General Draven's coup was imminent, and every moment counted. Layla knew that if she failed to act decisively, her empire and her chance at reform would crumble. Ethan became her closest ally during this time. He spent hours in the command center, helping Layla analyze intelligence reports and strategize. His knowledge of rebel tactics proved invaluable, offering insights that even her most seasoned officers lacked. Though some members of her crew still viewed him with suspicion, Layla trusted him completely. She had seen his courage and determination firsthand, and she knew he shared her vision for a better future. As the rebellion gained momentum, Layla made a bold decision. She announced a ceasefire, calling for peace talks with the rebel leaders. The move shocked her advisors, who argued that it would make her appear weak. But Layla stood firm. "If we want to end this cycle of violence," she told them, "we need to show that we're willing to listen." Her announcement sparked a wave of reactions across the empire. Some saw it as a sign of hope, while others viewed it as proof of her incompetence. Among the dissenters was Draven, who seized the opportunity to rally his supporters. He declared Layla unfit to rule, accusing her of being manipulated by outsiders. Within hours, his forces began mobilizing, preparing to strike at the heart of the empire. The final battle took place above Solus Minor, the desolate moon where Layla had met with the rebels. The Sovereign Dawn led the Loyalist fleet, its massive hull gleaming under the pale light of distant stars. Opposing them was Draven's armada, a formidable force equipped with advanced weaponry and seasoned fighters. The air buzzed with tension, as both sides prepared for the clash. Layla stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen. She wore the same simple uniform she had worn during her visit to Solus Minor, a symbol of her commitment to change. Beside her, Ethan monitored the ship's systems, his fingers flying over the console. Captain Mira Solon coordinated the fleet's movements, her voice calm but commanding as she relayed orders to the crew. When the first shots rang out, chaos erupted. Explosions lit up the void, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Sovereign Dawn shuddered under the impact of enemy fire, but Layla remained steadfast. She refused to retreat, knowing that her presence was crucial to maintaining morale. Ethan played a key role in the fight, using his knowledge of outdated human technology to exploit weaknesses in Draven's ships. He discovered that many of the vessels relied on outdated targeting systems, which could be disrupted with carefully timed electronic pulses. Working with the engineering team, he devised a plan to disable several enemy cruisers, giving the Loyalists a critical advantage. Despite the odds, Layla's forces held their ground. She led from the front, inspiring her troops with her bravery and resolve. When the Sovereign Dawn sustained heavy damage, she joined the repair crews, lending a hand wherever needed. Her actions earned the respect of her crew, who began to see her not as a distant ruler but as a leader willing to fight alongside them. The turning point came when Ethan managed to infiltrate Draven's flagship. Using a stolen shuttle, he slipped past the enemy defenses and boarded the vessel undetected. Once inside, he located the command center and planted a device designed to disable the ship's engines. As the countdown began, he radioed Layla, urging her to launch a final assault. With Draven's flagship immobilized, Layla ordered her fleet to press the attack. The Loyalists surged forward, overwhelming the remaining enemy ships. Draven himself was captured after a fierce firefight, his plans for a coup reduced to ashes. When the dust settled, Layla emerged victorious, but the cost of the battle weighed heavily on her. Ships on both sides had been destroyed and countless lives had been lost. Standing on the bridge of the battered Sovereign Dawn, she felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. The war was over, but the scars it left behind would take years to heal. In the aftermath, Layla faced a new challenge, rebuilding trust within her empire. Many worlds still harbored resentment toward her family's rule, and the rebels she had allied with demanded tangible changes. Layla listened to their concerns, vowing to address their grievances. She dismantled oppressive laws, redistributed resources to impoverished planets, and established councils where representatives from every world could voice their opinions. Ethan remained by her side throughout the process, offering guidance and support. Together they traveled to distant colonies, meeting with people who had long been ignored by the Empire. Layla listened to their stories, learning about the hardships they faced and the dreams they held dear. For the first time, she felt connected to the people she ruled, no longer seeing them as subjects but as individuals with hopes and aspirations. Draven's defeat marked the beginning of a new era for the Empire. Layla's reforms sparked a wave of optimism, though challenges remained. Some factions resisted her changes, unwilling to let go of the old ways, but Layla refused to back down. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to see it through. One evening, as the Sovereign Dawn orbited a newly liberated planet, Layla stood on the observation deck with Ethan. The view was breathtaking, with vibrant colors painting the horizon. For a moment they simply admired the beauty before them, savoring the quiet. "You've come a long way," Ethan said finally, breaking the silence. Layla smiled faintly. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You showed me what true leadership looks like." Ethan shook his head. "I just pointed you in the right direction. You're the one who made the hard choices." Layla nodded, her gaze fixed on the stars. She knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be obstacles to overcome, battles to fight, and lessons to learn. But for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face them, not because of her birthright, but because of the person she had become. As the sun rose over the distant planet, casting golden light across the void, Layla realized the truth. Ethan had shown her all along. True power wasn't about controlling others, it was about empowering them. And with that realization, she stepped into the future, ready to lead not as an empress born to rule, but as a leader chosen by those she served. The months that followed the battle above Solus Minor were a whirlwind of change. Layla worked tirelessly to rebuild her empire, guided by the lessons she had learned from Ethan and the rebels. She traveled from planet to planet, meeting with leaders and citizens alike. Her presence was no longer one of dominance but of partnership. She listened to their concerns, shared meals with them, and walked through their streets without guards surrounding her. For many, it was the first time they had seen an empress act like a person rather than a distant ruler. Ethan stayed by her side throughout this journey, becoming not just her advisor but also her closest friend. Together, they faced resistance, from factions within the Empire who opposed her reforms. Some high-ranking officers resented the shift in power, while others feared losing their privileges. But Layla remained steadfast, refusing to compromise on her vision for a fairer future. Slowly but surely, her efforts began to bear fruit. Worlds that had once been oppressed started to flourish, their people regaining hope and dignity. One evening, as the Sovereign Dawn orbited a newly revitalized colony, Layla stood on the observation deck with Ethan. The view was breathtaking. Fields of green stretched across the planet below, dotted with small towns and bustling cities. It was a stark contrast to the desolation she had seen during her earlier inspections. "Do you think we're making a difference?" she asked, her voice tinged with both pride and uncertainty. Ethan smiled, leaning against the railing. "You don't need me to answer that," he said. "Look at what's happening down there. People are rebuilding their lives because of you." Layla shook her head. "Not just me, all of us. This isn't something I could have done alone." "You're right," Ethan agreed. "But it takes someone special to bring everyone together. You've earned their trust, Layla. That's not something you can force. It's something you earn." His words brought a sense of peace to Layla. For so long she had doubted her abilities, wondering if she was truly fit to lead. But now, seeing the tangible results of her efforts, she felt a quiet confidence growing within her. She wasn't perfect, and she knew there would always be challenges ahead, but she was no longer afraid to face them. As the Empire continued to transform, Layla made another bold decision. She invited representatives from every world to join a new governing council. This body would oversee major decisions, ensuring that no single voice held unchecked power. It was a radical departure from the old system, where the emperor or empress ruled with near absolute authority. Many of her advisors warned her that such a move could weaken her position, but Layla dismissed their concerns. "True strength comes from unity," she told them. "If we want this empire to last, we need to share the burden of leadership." The council's formation marked a turning point in the empire's history. For the first time, voices from all corners of the galaxy had a say in how things were run. Farmers, engineers, teachers, and laborers sat alongside nobles and military leaders, debating policies and shaping the future. Layla presided over the meetings, guiding discussions without dominating them. She encouraged open dialogue, reminding everyone that disagreement was not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity for growth. Despite these strides, not everyone welcomed the changes. Some planets resisted integration into the new system, clinging to their independence. Others saw Layla's reforms as a threat to their way of life. In response, Layla sent envoys rather than soldiers, offering support and resources instead of ultimatums. Her approach was slow and often frustrating, but it proved effective. Over time, even the most reluctant worlds began to see the benefits of cooperation. One day, as Layla reviewed reports in her quarters, Ethan knocked on the door. He entered carrying a small data tablet, his expression unusually serious. "There's something you should see," he said, handing her the device. Layla scanned the contents, her eyes widening as she read. It was a message from Earth, a place long thought lost to time. A group of humans had uncovered ancient records detailing the planet's final days, along with coordinates for its location. According to the message, remnants of Earth still existed, preserved in hidden archives buried deep beneath its surface. "This is incredible," Layla whispered, her heart racing. "If this is true, it could change everything." Ethan nodded. "It's a chance to reconnect with humanity's roots, to learn from the past and build a better future." Layla didn't hesitate. She ordered the Sovereign Dawn to set course for the coordinates provided in the message. The journey took weeks, during which Layla spent hours studying the data and preparing for what lay ahead. When they finally arrived, she stepped onto the surface of Earth for the first time, her boots sinking into soft soil. The landscape was barren, scarred by centuries of neglect, but signs of life lingered. Plants struggled to grow amidst the ruins, and faint traces of human ingenuity remained etched into the land. Accompanied by a team of scientists and historians, Layla explored the underground archives. They uncovered artifacts, documents, and recordings that painted a vivid picture of Earth's final days. What struck Layla most was the resilience of its people. Even as disaster loomed, they had worked together to preserve their knowledge and culture, hoping that one day their descendants would carry the torch forward. Standing amidst the relics of Earth's past, Layla felt a profound sense of responsibility. She realized that her empire's story was part of a much larger narrative, one that spanned generations and galaxies. And in that moment, she understood her role more clearly than ever before. She wasn't just an empress ruling over thousands of worlds. She was a steward of humanity's legacy, tasked with ensuring its survival and growth. When the expedition returned to the Sovereign Dawn, Layla called a meeting of the governing council. She shared her findings, urging them to embrace the lessons of Earth's history. "We are all connected," she said. "No matter where we come from or what we believe, we share a common origin. Let us honor that bond by working together to create a brighter future." Her words resonated deeply with those present. From that day forward, the Empire adopted a new motto: unity through diversity. It became a guiding principle for all decisions, symbolizing the spirit of collaboration and mutual respect that Layla had fought so hard to foster. Years passed, and Layla's reign became the stuff of legend. Under her leadership, the Empire transformed into a beacon of progress and innovation. Worlds once divided by fear and mistrust now thrived as part of a united community. Layla herself grew into her role, shedding the doubts and insecurities that had plagued her youth. She was no longer the uncertain heir struggling to find her place. She was a leader who inspired others to dream bigger and reach further. Ethan remained by her side until the end of his days, serving not only as her friend but also as a bridge between humanity's past and its future. When he passed away peacefully, in his sleep, Layla mourned deeply but found solace in knowing that his influence lived on in the changes they had made together. In her later years, Layla often returned to the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the battles fought, the friendships forged, and the lives touched. Though her empire still faced challenges, she knew it was stronger than it had ever been. And as she watched the light of distant suns dance across the void, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Layla Voss had been born to rule 1,000 worlds, but she had chosen to serve them instead. In doing so, she had discovered her true power, not the ability to command armies or conquer planets, but the courage to listen, to learn, and to lead with compassion. And in that choice, she had found her purpose.